welcome to the fourth episode of the Conspiracy Madness Podcast, part of the Madness Podcast network of shows. Basically, the Conspiracy Madness Podcast is about conspiracies and mysteries, and normally I have a co-host, but he's not able to join us today, and normally I don't do the video version of this, so if you're able to watch us on YouTube, fantastic. If you are listening on podcast, any visuals that are shown through the YouTube live stream will actually have links in the show notes that will be included on your favorite podcasting website. So, I kind of want to cover a conspiracy based off of a trip that I took a couple of weeks ago to Memphis, Tennessee. And if anybody knows anything about Memphis, the conspiracies kind of goes around the main attraction down there, which is Graceland, the home of Elvis Presley. So I'm going to kind of cover some conspiracies on Elvis, particularly his death. But what I want to do first is kind of get into kind of some background and something that just some information about Elvis and his career and that kind of thing before we dive into the conspiracy portion of this show. So basically, Elvis was born on January 8th, 1935, and in 1950 he rose to stardom. That's when he became big. That's when he started really hitting the scene, and that was all because of Sam Phillips, who recorded the song That's All Right at the world-famous Sun Records studio in Memphis. So Sun Records studio is a location where a lot of the big names like Johnny Cash recorded, another good one, Jerry Lee Lewis recorded. So it's a location where, you know, a lot of big stars would go and record, and there are still big stars using today. A good example is Bono and U2. They've been down there and recorded at Sun Records. So basically Sun Records is open for tours during the day and recording at night. So it's kind of cool. So once in 1954, after That's All Right was on the radio, and he was starting to take off, he ended up coming across a guy by the name of Colonel Tom Parker, who really helped push his career. So in 1955, Colonel Tom Parker worked out a deal between Sun Records and RCA Victor Records to purchase Elvis's contract. So the purchase price of that was about $35,000, which doesn't seem much nowadays, but in 1955 that was relatively big. And Sun Records really wanted to get out of his contract so they'd have money to spend on recording the acts of, you know, Johnny Cash, like I said, Jerry Lee Lewis, and some others that had gone through the Sun Records. So on the January 27, 1956, Elvis released probably one of the more trademark songs that he had called Heartbreak Hotel. And this was followed up by tours where he was on tour with the likes of Johnny Cash and some of the other big names. Some TV performances. And he was just really rocketing his career to the next level. So basically, Elvis became the king of rock and roll and started being pushed, down the throats of America, if you want to put it that, and really taking on with the teenagers and stuff that wanted to get away from the sounds that, pretty much their parents had grown up with, and this was their own thing. So Elvis became popular because of his unique sound, his unique moves, and just really drove the way for a lot of big acts in the music industry. And even today, a lot of people credit him as an influence because, he's great. I mean, I personally am an Elvis fan. I don't know how many people are, but his music's fantastic, and his movies were great. He was really basically bigger than life when he was still going strong. So throughout Elvis's career, he had a pretty big, I guess, number of hits, if you want to call it that. He had 18 number one hits on the Billboard charts. Some say 21, but Billboard has it at 18, so that's kind of the main number there. So 18 number one hits on the Billboard charts. He did 33 movies, He had 3 TV concert specials. He had 117 gold records. And really, the only person that's behind him is Barbra Streisand at number 2 with 51. So Elvis more than doubled what Barbra Streisand did. He also had 67 platinum albums, 27 multi-platinum albums, and 1 diamond awarded album. So he was, has a lot of awards and that kind of stuff. And even in the year 2018, he's still getting awards. He got an award from President Trump. So in 2018, I can't tell you what the award was, but he did get an award in 2018. So he had a total of 197 albums that won an award or something along that lines, and the Beatles, who was number 2, only had 122. So he surpassed. He was above them significantly. So when Elvis died on August 16th, 1977, he died at his home in Graceland. He'd been feeling ill, and he just kicked off his latest tour, and his body was found in the residence, and everybody came and they pronounced him dead, and the official cause was a heart attack. So basically, the official ruling is a heart attack, but some people do not believe that was the case. They figure it might have been drug related or something along that lines. Unless you believe in the conspiracies that I'm about to get into. So, as we move along here, we're going to start out with conspiracy number 1. So, the reason why I'm going to start with this conspiracy is I think it just kind of really took off and pushed the conspiracies around his death and started things off. And that was that shortly after his death, there was a one-way ticket bought to Buenos Aires, Argentina. And the person that purchased this, his name was John Burroughs. And according to Elvis's acquaintances and all the people that worked for Elvis in Graceland, they were pretty much adamant that John Burroughs was an alias that Elvis used when he was on the road and wanted to stay in hotels and stuff, so people couldn't call and find out he was in the hotels. So the theory on this is that Elvis, still alive at this point, so this is after his death, still alive, even though he supposedly died, and he bought a one-way ticket to Argentina. So that's the very first conspiracy, or the very first Elvis is still alive theory that basically took off and started the whole Elvis faked his death conspiracy theory. So with that being said, we're going to move to a second mystery that I have, or a second conspiracy that I had different thoughts on before I actually visited Graceland for the first time, or this last time. I've actually been to Graceland like 3 times. So the last time I went to Graceland, we did the tour, and we actually had the tour guide. We didn't go through the one that you get a little iPad and headphones and you listen to John Stamos explain to you about Graceland. No, we paid and actually had a tour guide. And with this tour guide, she basically covered an aspect that I wasn't aware of, but it was already a theory that I decided I wanted to discuss when I was able to do this podcast. And that theory is the way Elvis's middle name is written on the tombstone that is at Graceland. So Elvis is buried at Graceland, along with his mother, his grandmother, and his dad. And then there's a marker for his twin brother, Jesse Guerin. They don't know where he's actually buried, but he was stillborn at birth the same time Elvis was born. So Elvis was technically a twin. And, the tombstone has Elvis's middle name spelled Aaron, which is technically and is what is on his birth certificate. So Elvis's middle name on his birth certificate is Aaron. Well, later in Elvis's life, he changed his middle name to Aron to match the spelling of his twin brother Jesse's middle name, Garon, or Garon. Now, Elvis changed his middle name without making it official. He didn't go to the courthouse and have it changed officially. He just started using the new spelling of his name. So he did it throughout high school, even when he was touring. You know, he spelled his middle name Aron. So because the two different spellings that, you know, his gravestone has Aaron and he went by Aron, people believe that was a sign that Elvis faked his death and he was telling all his fans, look, excuse me, I faked my death and this is how you know because my middle name's misspelled. Well, after talking with the tour guide, she kind of brought to light that, you know, either one of those spellings would be correct since he used both of them. One was on his birth certificate, one wasn't. So, you know, how it actually got on his tombstone, I don't know. I mean, anything could happen there. Someone could have, you know, been tasked to create the tombstone and used his birth certificate, which based off of, I think, the laws, that kind of thing, it would actually have Elvis Aaron, spelled Aaron, on his birth certificate. I mean, on his death certificate, like it is on his birth certificate. So that's kind of my thought is that whoever did it used his death certificate or birth certificate to put his name on the tombstone, but it is a conspiracy that says it's misspelled, therefore Elvis must be alive. Okay? So we're going to actually go to our third conspiracy or mystery, and this is one that started out on December 31st, 1977. So New Year's Eve of 1977, there were people visiting Graceland, and one in particular was Mike Joseph. So Mike Joseph is with his family visiting Graceland, and of course, as many tourists do, he's taking pictures. So he's walking around and he's out by the pool area and he takes a picture of the pool house. And when he does that, he didn't know that he captured something that looked kind of peculiar in the picture. So once he got the photo developed, he saw that there was an image in the doorway. It looked like somebody sitting in a chair. So basically, it's kind of like a picture for those that are listening on the podcast and not watching live, because live stream and on YouTube actually have the picture up in the corner. There will be a link to all these pictures in the show notes, so you'd be able to actually see these pictures as well, so you can always go back and look at it. This photo is actually, I would call the pool house photo. And it's a picture of a guy in the pool house with the door open, so it's got a door there and two glass panes. And those glass panes have in the lower frame somebody sitting in a chair that looks a lot like Elvis. So keep in mind, this is a few months after his death on December 31st, 1977. A photo is taken with a guy sitting in a chair that looks a lot like Elvis Presley. So Joe Esposito came out on Larry King and said it was Al Strada, but it hasn't been proven. But this is a very good controversial photo, and you know, it looks like him. So I mean, it's hard to say, you know, it's hard to dispute this particular conspiracy because it does look like him. So that is the, you know, driving factor on why this is truly a conspiracy, is because of what the photo looks like and the fact that it does look like Elvis sitting in the chair. Okay? So that covers that conspiracy. So we've taken care of 3 conspiracies, and now we're going to go to one more conspiracy. I think I've got a total of 8 that we're going to go through. So this would be conspiracy 4 on the death of Elvis. And there was an author by the name of Gail Brewer Giorgio, Giorgio, in 1988 created a book called Is Elvis Alive? This book was actually based on FBI documentations that the author actually saw, and she actually read them, and put this book together based off these FBI documentations. What the FBI documents said was that Elvis did not die, but Elvis was put into the witness protection program. So Elvis had to fake his death, go into hiding, and that's where he is today if he still would be alive. So basically what happened was the FBI had used Elvis to help take down the criminal organization known as the Fraternity. And so basically he was undercover. You know, he was infiltrating this criminal organization, and his identity was discovered that he was a mole. So it was discovered that he was a mole, and his life was in danger. So because his life was in danger, the FBI put him in witness protection and faked his death. So that is actually based on this book that was published in 1988 called Is Elvis Alive? I'm sure it's out there. I haven't actually looked for it on Amazon, but I'm sure it's out there. So there's actually a book out there that has this theory, which kind of leads us into conspiracy number 5. And this one will actually, when I post the show notes for the podcast and even in the notes in the YouTube live, I actually have a couple of YouTube videos that you can, one YouTube video and a article at www.thesun.co.uk, which is a news organization in the UK that talks about this one. And there's also a photo that goes with it. So all those links will be in the description of the podcast as well as in the YouTube live video. All right, so this one is about a guy, well, I don't want to give too much away just yet, but you know, like we said, Elvis was put into witness protection based off of conspiracy number 4. And if you go by that, then this next one could actually play into that, because there's a pastor in Arkansas named Bob Joyce, and he is a singing pastor. So he's at a church in Arkansas, and he sings in the church and he preaches and that kind of stuff. And once you see the YouTube videos, and the YouTube video I'm gonna link in the sun.co.uk news article, you'll actually see what I'm talking about. But I'm gonna go ahead and throw up a picture that kind of shows Bob, of course, is the gray-haired guy on the left, and Elvis is on the right. And his name is Bob Joyce. He looks a lot like Elvis, I'm telling you. He really does. When you watch the videos, he sounds like Elvis, and even people call him Elvis in some of the videos. This is a new conspiracy that just kind of came to light in this year, basically January of 2019. But the biggest thing is Elvis was born in 1935, and Bob's birth date is 1954. So I don't know if the FBI changes birth dates or anything like that, but he is a pastor. He sounds like Elvis. He looks like Elvis. And so the theory is that he is Elvis. As everybody knows, there's a lot of Elvis impersonators out there that, you know, look and sound like Elvis. That's kind of what they do. But this one is uncanny. Once you see the videos, you know, it'll make you think twice, especially if you have any thought that Elvis may still be alive and didn't die in 1977. So you can be the judge on this one if you want to. I thought it was a very strong case that Bob is Elvis, just for the fact that he looks and sounds like him. But, you know, you can make up your own mind as you check out those videos. All right, so now we're going to move to conspiracy number 6. And this one's kind of a good one. So this basically started back in 2016. Excuse me there. And it basically says that Elvis is alive and hiding in plain sight at Graceland. That's right. So he's at Graceland, and he works there, believe it or not. So he is a groundskeeper at Graceland. All right. So there's two pictures for this, and there's a YouTube video that'll be included with a link. But the pictures basically show a guy, in a blue shirt, and one picture side by side with Elvis, who has the guy has sideburns and hairstyle like Elvis, but it's gray, and he also has a goatee and a beard, or a mustache and a goatee. So, anyway, he does have some of the same look as Elvis. There's also another picture that I'm including on here as well that is, kind of a guy in a red shirt, the same guy that's in the blue shirt's in the red shirt, wearing a ball cap, doing kind of this finger thing that Elvis used to do quite frequently. And if you visit Graceland, there's actually a couple pictures of him doing this hand thing that I'm showing in this other video. So basically, he's a groundskeeper at Graceland. This apparently has been confirmed by other Graceland employees that it is Elvis. But through research, I found that his name is actually Bill Barmer. But then again, if it was Elvis, wouldn't you have an alias like Bill Barmer to throw people off? So once again, this is another one you can take a look at and decide for yourself if you believe that Elvis is the groundskeeper at Graceland. I think he looks a lot like him, but, like I said, once again, there's a lot of people that dress up and look and sound like Elvis, and they make a pretty good living at it. So, with that being mystery number 6, I'm, take a quick break and say hopefully you guys are enjoying this, because I've got a couple more I want to cover. And hopefully you're making your own decisions in this, and, when I look at some of the evidence, I lean towards, he could still, he could have faked his death, but, he was Elvis Presley. I don't know why he would want to do that. He was on top of the world at the time of his death. So, anyway, we're going to go do another conspiracy. This is the number 7 on the conspiracy list, and it is kind of an interesting one, and it's a quick one, but Elvis was in a lot of movies throughout his career, 33, like I mentioned before. But apparently he might have been in a 34th movie as an extra in the background of a movie. That's right. Elvis didn't get enough of it, so he decided he wanted to be an extra on set for a movie that was a box office hit quite a few years ago. I actually don't have the exact year on it, but I'm sure you guys can look it up and find out for yourself. I just didn't take the time to do it because it's such a small conspiracy. So there was a movie that starred Macaulay Culkin many years ago called Home Alone that took the box office by storm. It's still something that's played at Christmas time, that kind of thing. But apparently, Elvis was an extra in one of the scenes at the airport. So there's a guy in the background that's standing there. He's got a beard and a mustache that can be kind of resembles Elvis. Not necessarily does. But I thought this was a fun one to throw in just for the fact that it is pretty far-fetched. But if you ask me, I think the guy looks like Al Borland from Home Improvement more than it does Elvis. But you can decide for yourself. So I've got one more theory that I'm going to throw out there for you guys. And this is one that I just threw in there because I think every conspiracy theory needs to have this element to it, whether it's true or not, just for the fact that it really hammers home the conspiracy. And this was actually one that was a conspiracy from a movie that starred Tommy Lee Jones and Will Smith. Everybody knows it, Men in Black. The one scene where they're riding in that car, going through the tunnel, and Tommy Lee Jones is in the car, and the car's going upside down, and Will Smith falls down or whatever, and Tommy Lee Jones hits the button, and an Elvis song comes on the radio. And when that happens, Will goes, "You do know that Elvis is dead, right?" And what did Tommy Lee Jones say to him? "Nope, he just went home." So my last and final theory is that Elvis was an alien sent here to Earth, just to be a big, take over the world by storm, become this huge king of rock and roll, developed a new sound, and when his time was up here on Earth, he went back home to his home planet. So the last theory is that Elvis is an alien who went back home as opposed to faking his death or even dying in 1977. All right. So that really covers the conspiracies around Elvis's death. I kind of liked all of them, even the goofy one at the end. But it's for you guys to look at, and if you still care whether Elvis faked his death or not, hopefully you got a kick out of the podcast. You enjoyed it, and you've made up your mind for yourself at this point. If feel free to leave comments whether you believe it or not, which one you think has the best evidence that he might have faked his death, which ones didn't. Especially, just leave out the last one because we know that one's not even a possibility. But all I'm asking is leave comments. Let me know what you think. Don't forget to go to Madness Podcast network.com, which it's actually wrong on the screen on there. I forgot to put the network on the end of it. So if you're looking at it on the internet, it should be madnesspodcastnetwork.com or at MPN_shows on Twitter and MPN shows on Facebook. So if you're trying to get to the website, it's madnesspodcastnetwork.com. I'll actually have the link to the website in the description of YouTube and also in the podcast so you can get to it. But hopefully you enjoyed it. I enjoy doing these, and I think this was a fun one, especially after I recently visited Graceland and found out a little bit more cool, little bit of information. So please leave a comment, subscribe to the channel, check out our website, check out Twitter, and check us out on your favorite podcasting app, platform, however you receive your podcast. So until next time, I appreciate you, and thanks for joining.